Maybe the problem isn't how bad life is. Maybe the actual problem is about the scores we keep and the scores we settle in life. Think about this. When we start being too impressed by the results of our work, we slowly come to the erroneous conviction that life is one large scoreboard where someone is listing the points to measure our worth. And before we are fully aware of it, we have sold our soul to the many great givers. And that means we are not only in the world, but also of the world. And then we become what the world makes us. We are intelligent because someone gives us a high grade. We are helpful because someone says thanks. We are likable because someone likes us. And we are important because someone considers us indispensable. In short, we are worthwhile because we have successes. And the more we allow our accomplishments, the results of our actions, to become the criteria of our self-esteem, the more we are going to walk on our mental and spiritual toes, never sure if we will be able to live up to the expectations which we created by our last successes. In many people's lives, there is a nearly diabolic chain in which their anxieties grow according to their successes. You don't say, what we think will bring us success actually contributes to our unhappiness. So maybe the question the text is asking us here is this: what makes you successful? Wealth? Career? Status? Pleasure? Kids? Toys? Trips? Now, hear me out. All of that is great. Enjoy as much of it as you can. But if that's everything, if that's what we're banking on, or if that's what we think we deserve because we're decent people and we've worked hard, then for sure we are setting ourselves up for disappointment. And I wonder if that is exactly what's happening here in chapter 5, with all this anger towards God, and when we direct our anger at God, something's getting lost in the translation. There's a period where there shouldn't be one. And if you're not fluent in teenager or fluent in God, as it were, then there is the chance that you're misreading or misinterpreting what's really going on in your life. Our writer is angry because he feels that God is far away, but he's misreading the play. Our writer is furious because he feels abandoned by God, but he's just got the period in the wrong place. That's not what God is saying at all. Our writer is looking at his life. He's looking at all of life and saying, based on what I see, God must be mad at me. God must be mad at all of us. That must be the reason why things are the way they are. Now, will you allow me to remove that stray period from this conversation? So listen closely. God is not mad at you. God is not angry at this world. That is the direct opposite of God's message and God's personhood. So is life or this world God's problem? Yes. Or maybe a better way to say it is like this, that this world is God's responsibility. And God has taken full responsibility to ensure that ultimately all things are made right. And how do I know that? Jesus. So maybe our question here has two parts. Are you angry at God? Why? Do you feel that God is angry at you? Why? Is it because you were perfect and you followed all the rules and things haven't worked out? Or is it because you made a bunch of mistakes and things haven't really worked out? My friends, you are God's responsibility. God's got you. And if you feel any different, or if someone has told you differently, it's because you've got a period where there shouldn't be one. You're misreading what he's been saying all along. The accidental good advice he finally gives us is this: quit looking somewhere else for something you don't have. And remember, this is the same guy who just said that he'll have nowhere to belong in the future, and now he contradicts himself. I told you that this book was a mess, and says the very opposite. But for you and I, stop wandering or roving for a better house, for a better car, for greater prestige, for greater sex, for greater success. Because when we do that, we lose contact with the actual place and moment we're in. Our hearts and minds begin to wander off to some non-existent place, and then this special moment we're in, with the special people that fill it, is depleted of meaning, and then we are truly left with nothing.
The Christian story is that Easter is the day that Jesus, who was dead 12 hours before, rose from the grave. It's the story of how God does for humanity what humanity can't do for itself. And Ash Wednesday and Lent are a part of that script. They help tell the story of what leads up to Easter. So, for instance, on Ash Wednesday, our foreheads are marked with ashes, reminding us of our origin story in Genesis 3, when Adam and Eve eat the fruit God told them not to eat and experience mortality. The ashes remind us that the reality of life is that we will mess up and we will be hurt, that we are vulnerable, that we will die, that we cannot fix this world on our own. We need outside help. The 40 days of Lent remind us of the story of the Israelites wandering in the desert for 40 years, giving in to temptation, and then the 40 days Jesus spent in the wilderness overcoming it. Lent reminds us that we share in the human condition. Our progress, our smarts, all of our successes cannot keep us from this truth. And in particular, Ash Wednesday and Lent are ways of being in time that help us to live with the reality of what is, while putting our faith in the context of this larger reality, this larger story. So, what story holds room for dark? What story makes room for the experience that the world is a mess and there's lots to be angry about? What story makes room for the feeling that God might be indifferent? What story makes room for all of these questions, but also offers hope? It's not the story of the Easter Bunny. It's the story of the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. Ash